Somewhere on the Arctic coast, there is a circle of ground where the snow does not settle. About a meter across. Inside it, the earth is steaming. And at the center of that circle, a metal cylinder, waist high, warm to the touch, in a place where nothing is warm. If you came across it tonight, you would do what anybody would do. You would sit down beside it. You're listening to Phantom Archive. Tonight's file is about a country that built around 1,500 nuclear power stations, each one the size of a barrel, and set them out along the emptiest coastline on Earth. They were lighthouses, and they worked. For 30 years, they worked beautifully. Then the country that put them there stopped existing. Nobody switched them off. Nobody could. Start with the problem, because the problem is real. The northern sea route runs along the top of Russia. Thousands of miles of coast where the sun goes down in November and does not come back until February. Ships still have to find the channel. So that coast needs lights, hundreds of them. And there is nobody out there to tend a light. No roads, no power lines, no fuel deliveries for most of the year. So the engineers asked a fair question. What burns for 10 years with nobody watching it? The answer was strontium. Strontium-90. A waste product of nuclear fission that does one useful thing on its way out. It gets hot, and it stays hot. Seal enough of it into a steel capsule, and the core sits at 300 or 400 degrees for decades. Wrap that in thermocouples, and the heat becomes current. The standard unit was called Beta M, half a ton of machine, 40,000 Curies of strontium in the middle of it. And the electricity it made, after all that, 10 watts. A nightlight. They were delivered by helicopter, out to a headland, down onto bare rock, and away. No fence, no guard, on most of them, no sign. And then the light came on, every polar night, for 10 years, with no human being within 100 miles. And understand, this is good engineering. It is elegant. It solved a problem that punishes every other answer. Around 1,500 of them went out, 80% along the Arctic route, 150 in Chukotka alone, a whole coastline lit by decay. 1991. The Soviet Union ends. And with it go the ministries that owned these things, the budgets that inspected them, and a good deal of the paperwork saying where they were. The lights didn't care. They kept working. That was the entire point of them. They were built to be forgotten. So for years, nothing happens out there. Nobody comes. Nobody checks. And a few hundred kilos of stainless steel, lead, aluminium, and on some models, depleted uranium stand on open rock, unwatched, in a country where scrap metal has just become money. 1999. Kingisepp, west of St Petersburg. Somebody takes one apart for the metal. The valuable layers come off first. The steel, the lead, the shielding. What's left is the core, a capsule about the size of a thermos, with nothing around it anymore. It turns up at a bus station. Reports from the time say all 3 men who handled it died. They had taken the shield and left the source, and that becomes the pattern. March 2003. Kurgolovo on the Baltic. 500 kilos of metal carried off. The core thrown out onto the frozen sea, 200 meters from shore. November of the same year. The Kola Bay. A northern fleet patrol finds 2 of them torn open. The strontium capsules lying in shallow water and on the beach. Cape Navarin in Chukotka. 1 is crushed, possibly driven over by a tracked vehicle. By 2004, it is leaking into the ground, and the reading at the site is 87 Röntgen an hour. For years, the official line had been that these capsules could not be broken open. They could. And then one of them met 3 men who had no idea what they were looking at. December 2nd, 2001. Not the Arctic. Western Georgia. A forest above the Nguri River. 8 of these generators had been put there in 1983 to power radio relays for a dam project. The project stopped. The generators stayed. 3 men from the village of Leah are out collecting firewood. 6 in the evening. December, so it's been dark for hours. They find 2 metal cylinders lying in the trees. There's no snow around them for about a meter. The ground is steaming, and it is a very cold night. So they stay. They make camp. They drag the cylinders in close, about 10 centimeters from their backs, and they sleep leaning against them. Warm for the first time all day. Within 3 hours, all 3 are vomiting. It goes on the whole night. In the morning, they can barely stand. They go home. What they had been sleeping against was 35,000 Curies of strontium-90 with the shielding stripped off it. One of them is treated and released in January. The second spends more than a year in hospital and needs extensive skin grafts. The third lives 893 days. He dies in May 2004. And here's the detail I keep going back to. To take those same 2 cylinders out of that same forest, the recovery team built a container lined with 25 centimeters of lead. It weighed 5.5 tons. 41 people worked the operation. Each of them was allowed near the sources for 40 seconds. 40 seconds. In full protection, on a stopwatch. 3 men had slept against those cylinders for most of a night, with their coats in between. The cleanup was real, and it worked. Foreign money paid for most of it. American, Norwegian, French, Canadian. helicopters went back up that coast, one headland at a time, for 25 years. By 2021, the lighthouse generators were gone, except 2 are on the seafloor off Sakhalin, dropped from helicopters in bad weather. One in 1987, one in 97. Neither was ever brought up. And the last count still put about 20 of them unaccounted for. Strontium-90 takes 29 years to lose half its strength. The ones filled in 1983 are just past halfway, which means they are still warm, still doing exactly what they were designed to do, working perfectly for nobody. Somewhere up there tonight, the snow isn't settling on a circle of ground about a meter across. This has been Phantom Archive. The file stays open.